Canada sends $25 million in APCs. What's a LAV-2 Bison and the Coyote mean on Ukraine's front lines? Canada just dropped $25 million on armored vehicles for Kyiv, and they're not just troop taxis, they're battlefield amplifiers, eyes, ears, and command brains, all on 8 wheels. Oh, and by the way, Canada, welcome back to the channel. I missed you, you sons of... And I say that as a term of endearment. Hey friends, I'm Wes O'Donnell, former grunt with the 101st Airborne, Air Force Surveillance Radar, pointy head, and professional war tech whisperer. Today we're talking about how some 1990s Canadian steel is about to make a 2025 difference on Ukraine's most brutal front lines. This is more than just another arms package, it's a signal. Canada's backing Ukraine with mobile fire control, battlefield recon, and frontline resilience. Let's break it down. That's more like it. Let's talk about the neighborhood these Canadian vehicles are moving into. Imagine eastern Ukraine right now. Not exactly a tourist hotspot. The terrain is a messy mix of trenches that zigzag like a cracked iPhone screen, shell-pocked farmland, and ruined villages where the only thing growing faster than the grass is a list of things that explode. It's Mad Max meets Cold War meets TikTok drone warfare. Oh, and the front line isn't a line. It's more like a smear. You've got Lancet drones loitering overhead like budget Terminators, Russian artillery pounding anything with a heat signature, and mines in every cow path, tree line, and suspiciously undisturbed patch of dirt. Oh, and those FPV drones? Yeah, they don't knock. Now, picture trying to run a battalion-level command post in that chaos. You're juggling Starlink logins, trying to pull wounded soldiers from a kill zone without getting your medevac vehicle vaporized, and coordinating HIMARS strikes through enough electronic jamming to make a Cold War radio operator weep. You don't need luxury. You need survival wrapped in steel with a side of EW hardening. And here's the real kicker. Mobility isn't optional anymore. It's doctrine. If you're static, you're dead. If you're slow, you're dead. If you look vaguely like a tank from 500 feet up, you're dead. That's the environment these Canadian vehicles are stepping into. They're not meant for parade grounds or photo ops. They're showing up to a knife fight where the knives fly, detonate, and occasionally phone home to Moscow. In that kind of hell, rolling up with a Bison that can carry a mobile command team or a Coyote that can see through a tree line from 24 kilometers away, well, that's battlefield Darwinism, and these vehicles just might be Ukraine's way of climbing a few rungs up the food chain. That's where the LAV-2 Bison and Coyote roll in, courtesy of our neighbors to the north. Last week, Canada committed nearly $26 million for armored vehicles, upgrades, ammo, and electronic warfare gear. These aren't experimental prototypes or PR stunts. These are combat-proven, modular platforms that were made to be used, not just displayed in parades. So, what do you actually do with a Bison and a Coyote, besides give them cool names that sound like rejected Air Force fighter pilot call signs? Well, let's start with the Coyote, the one with teeth. The Coyote is basically a recon vehicle that got tired of being a nerd and decided to hit the gym. It rolls out with a 25mm Bushmaster chain gun, a full suite of optics, infrared sensors, and battlefield radar, all mounted on a mast that extends like a periscope. Built by nerds with PhDs in vengeance. This thing doesn't just see, it watches, judges, and relays your sins to HIMARS. It has a dual-mode surveillance system. One setup lets it plant a remote sensor pack 200 meters away via a cable spool, like some kind of cybernetic hunting dog that fetches Russian tank positions instead of sticks. The other setup hoists a mast 10 meters in the air and says, let's get a better look at what we're about to turn into abstract art. That radar, by the way, it's not just a fancy rotating dish for show. We're talking M-STAR ground surveillance radar, able to detect vehicle movement 24 kilometers out. So before a Russian BMP even finishes Googling directions to the front line, the Coyote already knows what street it's on, what time it left base, and whether the guy inside remembered to shave. Now, let's talk data fusion. The Coyote doesn't just stare off into the void. Once it sees something juicy, That intelligence is packaged, GPS tagged, and transmitted across Ukraine's Delta Command and Control network, or piped straight through a Starlink uplink, assuming Russia hasn't melted the satellites yet. In seconds, that data can land in a HIMARS team's fire control computer. So by the time the Russians realize they've been spotted, their convoy's on fire and the survivors are checking Google Translate for "I surrender" in Ukrainian. But hey, not everything is sexy recon and long-range targeting. Sometimes you need a battlefield multi-tool. Enter the Bison. The Bison is like the Swiss Army knife of APCs. Ambulance? Check. Mortar carrier? Sure. Mobile command post? Absolutely. Want to bolt some jamming gear and make it an electronic warfare node? Why not? It's got room. That's the point. Modularity. The Bison's interior is designed like IKEA for warfighters. Rail mounts, removable gear, interchangeable modules. It's less tank and more war wagon, capable of transforming into, well, whatever you need based on what kind of awful Tuesday the Russians are cooking up next. Need a battlefield ambulance that doesn't turn into Swiss cheese under loitering munition fire? Bison. Need a rolling fire direction center coordinating drone swarms, tank pushes, and long-range artillery all at once? Bison. Need a mobile EW station to fry shaheeds in midair or stop Orlons from transmitting grandma's apartment coordinates? You guessed it, Bison. And I'm not talking about the Street Fighter II villain. Even better, these vehicles don't need perfect roads. They're 8x8s with rugged suspensions, armor plating, and the kind of off-road durability that makes a Stellantis Jeep cry itself to sleep. When you're trying to get through Ukrainian terrain that's either pure mud or riddled with mines, that matters. And both of these vehicles, despite being older designs, have been retrofitted and upgraded to survive in a world of drone swarms, GPS spoofing, and sudden fiber drone parties. They're fast enough to get in and out, armored enough to give you a fighting chance, and smart enough to talk to the rest of the network. So, if you're in a combined arms fight where every second counts, where drones fill the air and artillery is always listening, the Bison and the Coyote aren't just support vehicles. They're battlefield conductors, coordinating, connecting, and accelerating the entire orchestra of destruction. And in Ukraine's case, they don't just move the needle, they help aim the gun. Let's zoom out for a second, because as fun as it is to geek out over radar masts and mortar carrier Bisons, this isn't just about gear. It's about what it means. Canada sending another batch of LAV-2s isn't some polite, "Sorry for the delay, here's a casserole" kind of military aid. This is strategic alignment in action. Canada is tethering its defense industry to the war's outcome. Ottawa is basically saying, we're not just here to donate, we're here to co-produce the win. So why does that matter? Because war is a supply chain problem dressed up in camouflage. Ukraine doesn't need more bullets and vehicles. Well, it does, but it really needs systems that can be supported, upgraded, and kept in the fight for years. Canada isn't sending garage queens. These LAV-2s are already being serviced, upgraded, and supplied through a long-standing industrial pipeline. That means fewer Ukrainian mechanics pulling parts off wrecks and more units staying mission ready. Also, this move signals something bigger. NATO is slowly, cautiously helping Ukraine move toward interoperability without writing it down and getting Moscow frothy. The Coyote's sensor package, the Bison's modular kit, the EW upgrades, these aren't hand-me-downs. They're training for combined arms ops, NATO style. Ukraine gets to practice the full orchestra: recon, strike, comms, EW, mobility, all in sync. So when that future F-16 pilot gets radar data from a Coyote, relays it to a HIMARS via Delta, and watches the smoke cloud from 30,000 feet, that's doctrine in motion. And remember, these systems survive. That's huge. Ukraine is fighting a war where static positions get vaporized and soft-skinned vehicles are drone bait. But a mobile radar truck that can hide behind a tree line, scan the next valley, and disappear again, that's force preservation. And every crew that lives to fight another day matters more than ever. Strategically, this is also a message to Russia. Not loud, chest-thumping, "we're coming for Moscow" kind of message, but something subtler, something more unnerving. It says the West isn't just topping off Ukraine's gas tank. We are retooling the engine, quietly, methodically, relentlessly. And there's a psychological layer here too. Every time Russia sees a new batch of Western vehicles roll in, especially ones that work, communicate, and don't need duct tape to operate, it eats away at the myth of Russian dominance. It's like watching your neighbor replace a rusty Lada with a tricked-out Subaru Ascent that talks to satellites. And ultimately, it's a preview of post-war power. Ukraine is proving that it can field a modern, agile, tech-enabled army in the middle of a shooting war. That's not just good for survival, it's a resume for NATO. So yeah, the Coyote doesn't drop bombs, but it starts the kill chain. And the Bison, well, it keeps the whole command structure mobile and alive. Canada didn't just send armored vehicles, it sent tools for endurance, systems for scaling, and a whisper to every NATO holdout. Ukraine is already part of the club. It just hasn't gotten the membership card yet. Look, Ukraine still operates under a mix of Soviet, ad hoc, and Western hybrid doctrine. Coyotes and Bisons represent a push towards something cleaner, combined arms operations the way NATO imagines them. These vehicles let units coordinate strikes, recon, and logistics with modern mobile infrastructure. But they'll only succeed if Ukraine adapts its doctrine to match. That's not to say Ukraine isn't doing fine on its own. There's a lot that NATO can learn from Ukraine, and trust me, they are. But these aren't plug-and-play platforms. They require training, integration, and mission-specific deployment. If they're just treated as fancy Humvees, their potential will be wasted. Bottom line, Canada's $25 million in APCs is more than just a donation. It's a doctrine test. It's a bet that Ukraine can leverage mobility sensors and protection to fight smarter, not just harder. In modern war, whoever sees first, shoots first. The Coyote sees, the Bisons protect. And together, they might just help Ukraine shape the battlefield in 2025. That's it for today, friends. Subscribing is the best way to support this channel and prevents me from launching a military-themed OnlyFans where I just polish ammo cans in slow motion, although I would probably watch that. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.